Degree, where we are talking about the latest trends, technologies, and innovations happening across the healthcare and media spaces right now. Whether you're joining us for the first time or an avid watcher, we're glad you're here because you are in the right place for all things hot in pharma marketing. Today, we have a couple of special guests, Carly Brady and Margot Kopp, who are our Austin-based paid social team. They attended South by Southwest last month, and they're going to share some highlights and trends. We also have our SEO crew, subject matter experts, talking to us about ChatGPT. I'm Amanda Preto. Let's get started. All right, so we are here with Carly Brady and Margot Kopp, our team on the scene from South by Southwest last month. They are our paid social experts who did us proud, represented us really well. If you've been watching our social channels and reading the scoop, you've seen amazing recaps. A lot of those came from Carly and Margot. So we're here today to just hear from them some highlights from South by 2023, which is being called the comeback year for South by since COVID. So hi, Carly, let's start with you. I'd love to hear about some of the trends you saw in Austin.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the major trends we saw this year was mental health and how it's impacting really every industry we see, and how it kind of bleeds in to everything we do. I will say with that, a lot came along, a lot of emotion with a lot of the panels. A lot of them, I would say, tied back to a really humanizing experience, talking more about empathy and how we can really just bring community and inclusivity into everything we do. So while we went to panels that really dove into tech and the health industry and got into the nitty gritty, I will say for the most part, leaving panels or activations, there was always some type of element of emotion and really connecting with each other. So I think, focusing on mental health, how we can improve it, and then also implementing this human connection through what we do was really one of the biggest takeaways for me.
I think that's really awesome. And not to turn everything back to COVID, because I feel like every conversation almost naturally goes there these days. But I feel like that was a big outcome of, the couple of years in the pandemic and this more human approach to everything we do in terms of work. And I think in the wellness space that we're in, always remembering that the person on the other side, the one we're serving, is a person, is a whole self, as we like to say. Let's go over to Marco. How about you? What did you see that was interesting?
Yeah, kind of bouncing off of that, something I saw a lot of was patient advocacy. So, patients really starting to use their voice to spread their message and kind of share tips and tricks on how we as a society can begin to support this patient driven movement. And then taking that a step further, how we can support patient advocacy in marginalized groups specifically. And I know our panel touched on some of these issues specifically as it relates to lack of representation in the healthcare space. So I think it was really cool to see those topics really highlighted at South by and DEI efforts as a whole really being brought to light. And it's clear that it's a conversation that's starting to become more prioritized as it should be, but in the healthcare industry specifically, where I think there's a lot of growth to be had.
That, and I love, the CMI Media Group, honestly, is taking such a stance in a meaningful way around the conversation of inclusive media. So thanks for that. What else, Carly? What else did you see?
Yeah, so I think one of the exciting panels that I stopped by covered how wellness looks different for everyone. And the wellness culture in our society is obviously booming, and this really impacts healthcare and the health industry. And the panel really focused on how, for people of color and women of color specifically, wellness looks completely different than how it is portrayed through media. And I think that's a really important takeaway for us to bring to our clients and our brands. Because again, the wellness space, healthcare falls under that. I think it's really important that while we need to identify messaging for certain people, we also need to take a step back and really understand where that messaging should be appearing, what influences that messaging, and really just take a deeper dive. Because as we were mentioning before, post-COVID, a lot of people are looking for that human connection, that empathy connection. And I think that's just a really great way to be more inclusive and reach the right people in the right way.
Agree. Thanks. Anything to add to that, Margot, or anything that you saw that, dovetails into that Carly shared?
No, I feel like Carly just kind of covered it all. I just thought it was cool as a whole from like the wellness piece that it was kind of easy to apply everything we came across to what we do here at CMI. Health is obviously huge and always has been, but I think following the pandemic, the world is moving in this new direction. And I think it's trending now more than ever. So it was definitely really cool to see our industry highlighted, whether it be in wellness, pharma, whatever it is, and be connected to so many conversation, even ones that you wouldn't think going into would have that direct correlation. So I think all the health related content was just great at such an innovative conference like South by Southwest. And I think in turn that shows like the huge opportunity that we have in this space as well.
Totally agree. Thanks for the incredible recap and the incredible job. All right. So if you caught our episode last month, we were with Mark Pappas, lead of innovation here at CMI Media Group, and we started to intro around ChatGPT. Today, we're going to take a deeper dive. Hi, Brian Cox. It's good to see you. Can you just start us off, level set us? What is ChatGPT and what is it not?
Sure, thanks, Amanda. So, ChatGPT is a large language model which was created and trained by the company OpenAI. In other words, it's an artificial intelligence computer program that can help with basic tasks as well as answer questions. In terms of what it is not, um, ChatGPT is not perfect, so it may generate inaccurate or biased responses based on the information that it was trained on. So, as it encounters new topics or new languages that it doesn't necessarily know to identify, it might provide you with an inaccurate response. So, it's definitely not a replacement for human interaction or expertise, and should be not be used to make important decisions or provide medical or legal advice.
Something specifically I wanted to mention too is that, like, what we talk about when we're talking about machine learning is patterns, right? So like, how like you have auto suggest on your phone, there's a similar situation where it's basing the language off picking the next most probable word in a sentence and trying to kind of pull it together to see if it actually does make sense. So I think even from talking about a information or fact-based approach to creating answers to questions that you ask of ChatGPT, there's still a mystery of whether or not there's actual credibility behind the information in
Well,
it.
I think the difference too is that, natural language processors and machine learning, that's Google, that's search engines now. Deep learning is the next step that this has done, which is
Yeah.
it has taken that data and it's trying, instead of trying to learn how humans learn, that's what it has done. It's now trying to imitate how humans speak. That's the big leap I think that we've taken with this.
Interestingly enough, like, I mean, is imitation credibility, right? Like if we're looking for expert information, if we're looking for people to give us the answers that we're searching for, are we going to trust somebody that's potentially making these answers up based off of pattern?
I think the point that like we need to just be clear about is that it's not a search engine, right? Like it's something that may take information from search engines to kind of get some initial answers, especially if you think about something like Bard, which is obviously a Google property. But I think what really happens is goes back to the machine learning. Like it learns off of the refinements and the prompts that you give it, right? So it's constantly evolving and learning, I guess, through that process.
So you can also iterate off of the prompts and the responses that you get from the tool as well. So an original prompt, you would get an output. If the output is not exactly what you would need, you can then refine the prompt and get them to recirculate the output to get exactly what you need.
Another layer, kind of a step back that I like to take, is also the fact that all that search engines are data. They are big data. It is, that's how they make money. That's their revenue model. It's big data. This is a new way for big data to evolve in those iterations, and it's also a way, for there's a way for us to democratize that data in that we now all have much more ability to pull that data, run that data, iterate our response to that data. I think that's really part of the future of what we're going to do with ChatGPT.
That'll be the big link, right? Like that'll be the ability to actually use this type of technology and this type of information to summarize that big data and get us the insights that we need in like a natural language. I think that's going to be, a really, really innovative step for technology.
And back to your point about like, is imitation valuable? I think, recently Google has said that it's not going to, there is value in AI created content. It's not going to, harm you or ding your website for having done that. So I think moving forward, the key here is how the same thing will be true as has been true in the past. Content creators will be rewarded, not imitators. So we have to, it's really easy to get some kind of imitation out of the chat bot. How do we prompt it to be creative and innovative with it? That's where the human brain comes in. That's where we're going to make, an impact on our work.
And that's a big deal too. Like I feel like it's the people that are out there that are kind of doomsdaying and saying that like this technology is going to take over people's jobs, and this technology is going to be something that replaces people in the workforce. And I think that's one of the big differentiators, is that there's still going to be a need for people to be able to understand how to use the tool, operate it, make sure that the result that's coming out of it is the best quality that's available, and knowing how to use that is going to be a very, very valuable skill for moving forward.
I think you have to adapt, right? So like it's obviously, you think about our job as SEOs, right? So obviously there's a lot kind of going on in the world of SEO right now with ChatGPT and AI, right? So, there's definitely ways that we can use it to, become more efficient, right? So there's ways that we can use it to kind of automate some tasks that maybe have take some time, where we can kind of then focus on bigger strategies, right? So I think there's a lot of benefit. I think that when it comes down to, we talked a second ago about it not being a search engine and search engines, right? So like, I think that AI, ChatGPT, Bard, all these things, and SEO search engines are like companion pieces, right? They can work together just to make everything better. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what Google's looking for, right? Google search engines, whatever, they're trying to take complex information and give it to users in a big picture, and then you can go off and explore more on your own, right? In my experience, my very brief experience using Bard, I did a couple of searches, gave it a couple of prompts, and then found myself Googling to go a little bit deeper, right? And so yeah, I think it's about adapting, right, and kind of figuring out how you can use them in conjunction.
And wouldn't you agree that it's like the conflicting experience on both, like the new Bing integrating ChatGPT as part of the search, and the difference between that and Bard using it as a almost like as a support for the incapability of the AI? I think it's like a pretty interesting comparison, right? Like where you're using the new Bing and it's enhancing your search experience, like you're searching for a question and it's giving you your automated response next to search results. That's like a very kind of like comprehensive experience. Where alternatively, when you're looking at the experiences that we had with using Google Bard, having an interaction with the AI bot and then only depending on a search after the bot isn't able to answer your question, I think it's a very, very different experience on both ends.
So that's interesting, because and I'm not sure what Google's plan is, like, because I feel like that environment that we're in for Bard might just be like a test environment. I think it's supposed to be integrated, because I was reading about how things are supposed to, maybe it would start pushing stuff down in the SERP, right? It's going to come above featured snippets and that type of thing, right? So as SEOs, there's another thing that we kind of have to adapt to, right? But like, once it gets fully integrated, like, kind of the same thing. Or right now there's a feature that says Google it, like built right into the thing, right? So
I think the big effect that's going to have, and as that evolves, and this is the most crazy thing about search, is that it's going to change how people search. I mean, we see it generationally already. Millennials look up 3, 4, 5 words. Gen Z looks up sentences. Those are their queries. And it's going to get so much more specific, because as those two things, that search engines and AI, work better together, people are going to realize that they can ask for like way more specific stuff, and get much more targeted answers, versus having to scroll and browse different, metadata, title tags, meta descriptions, what it says on the search engine, to figure out what they need.
The advent of keywords, right? Keywords were made because technology was not able to understand human language and how to kind of sort through their indexes to get the appropriate responses. So people had to get shorter phraseology and get more targeted with what they're looking for. it's interesting enough now the technology has over evolved to understand full sentences, full language, so that you can be more specific with your search. You can ask it questions, you can give it context, and get those super hyper focused results.
I think there is going to be a change in how we approach our SEO, typical strategies and maybe some of the tactics that we use, right? Like one of the big things with AI is that it's going to have especially when it comes to search engines, is having a better understanding of the meaning behind a user's intent, right? Obviously, something that's always been top of mind for search engines is intent, right? Well, now when people are using these tools and going into those refinements and coming up with these prompts, search engines are learning what the real intent is and then can learn that and apply it to that user's search history and gets into a whole world of personalization, right? um yeah, so I think there's definitely going to be a definite change in some of the approach that we would typically take. I think a lot of the stuff stays the same, right? Quality content, longer form content, that kind of stuff. I think going back into the idea of, expertise and authoritativeness and trust, that's still going to be, that's not a thing that's going to go away, right? And I think as SEOs, we need to be able to, continue to preach that and put out that good quality stuff and not just rely on AI to come up with whatever it decides it wants to come up with.
Focus on pharma. Across the board, safety is a major concern, but especially in pharma, because as the search intent gets more and more specific, there's going to be opportunity for people to get number one, fed bad information, and number two, led down bad roads. And one of the things we didn't touch on was that AI can give you false information. It is pulling from data up until, ChatGPT is pulling data up until 2021 from the internet. That's what it was trained on. It's not pulling data. That's what it was trained on. It can give you false information because it's just trying to imitate from the data that it understands. So pharma specifically, I think one thing that will change is that we will have to look at combating misinformation from the way that people use AI, whether it's through chatbots on the search engine or they're just going directly to ChatGPT or Bard, whatever it is. They're going to get information that's not going to be correct, and that can be dangerous. So we're going to need to actually actively scope out that information. We're going to have to go find it and figure out what the different chatbots are saying in different situations, what are the possibilities, and then how can we combat that from the website and digital campaigns across the board. I think that's why SEO is foundational, is because we're going to be pulling that data to inform all the rest of those campaigns.
So to that end, asking the entire group here, what do you think are the uses for pharma marketers? And also, what do you think are some of the watch outs?
So I think as Anthony said, customization and personalization is going to be a big one. Using chatbots with patients and with HCPs, different and creative ways to do that. I think there will be opportunities that haven't been thought of yet as far as fresh and real-time data. And I think potentially, there are lots of applications when it comes to, diagnosis or even safety and efficacy. But I think we have to tread carefully. I also think an important part of all of this is how will the regulations evolve? Pharma is highly regulated. This is the Wild West. So we need to figure out how we're going to adapt and evolve in a safe way for these patients.
I think it's going to be an awesome opportunity too for patients that are on a treatment path already, and they're able to kind of get more information and get things that are a little bit more personalized to where they are. I think it's a little bit kind of like what Vanessa was talking about, the Wild West when it comes to a patient that hasn't yet been diagnosed, because I think it's a matter of then trying to leverage this type of technology to understand what's going on with them, and knowing very clearly that this type of technology is not a doctor. A doctor is a doctor, is going to be kind of like a blurry line for a lot of people who are more interested in using something that's quick, fast to get an answer, as opposed to taking time and investing and speaking with a professional going through testing, making sure everything's okay. So I think from a perspective of somebody that's already on a train and is ready to go through treatment and understanding and learning, it's going to be great. But I think we'll have to be very, very careful when it comes to the open-ended questions where people aren't really there yet with understanding.
I think there's also kind of an interesting opportunity for brands to reach potential patients when maybe they typically wouldn't, right? So, if there's customer service, for example, right? You're only open so often, right? Users might not be searching for their issues or questions until late at night, right? And you have chatbot technology that's able to kind of, be there for those potential patients when maybe there's somebody who's not, right? And that can kind of become an entry point, for new patients, right? Searching for information. There was a news article that came out not that long ago about how maybe an engineer or someone, I don't know if it was at Google, was asking the AI chatbot, like, "Are you alive?" And it said, "Yes, I'm alive, and I want to get out of here," or something. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it can get it. We could be headed towards Skynet. Who knows?
They say that, I mean, ultimately, the evolution of this type of technology is going to outsmart us in 7 years. They said we're on the path to have, I think it's over evolution is the phraseology. I have to look it up. But the idea that the way that these types of programs learn, they're going to be able to exceed human learning within 7 years, which is, again, another scary kind of process.
Yeah, I think there's like a responsibility. I mean, there have been plenty of movies and sci-fi, whatever's books written about this. Like, we have a responsibility to, monitor that and figure out how to use it for good and not evil. Like, I truly believe that. I think this is a huge, huge step in humanity. 100 years ago, we talked about the Industrial Revolution, or a little over 100 years ago, and I think this is the next big thing. So I think we're talking about SEO and pharma. I think the potential here is just wild and crazy, but so is potentially the dangers. I think we need to be real about that.
One of the things I did want to talk about too, to your point, Anne, about the idea about it potentially being alive or having that feeling, is that a comparative point with the experiences that I've had with using ChatGPT and using Google Bard is that ChatGPT will identify itself as technology regularly, where Google Bard will say things like, "I'm excited to help you," where it almost personifies itself and makes it seem a little bit more assistant friendly, rather than it being like, "Here's a program. This could be a person or somebody that's behind the scenes that's taking time to answer these questions."
Which feels unnecessary, honestly. Like, I don't know why we need AI to do that.
Yeah.
I think that, and I think that if we push that too much, then we do get ourselves in a place where we're going to have people interacting with it. And just like we do with social media, replacing that for actual human connection, which is not good for people. It's not good to not talk to your doctor. It's not good to not have that connection. So I think that we have to be careful that we don't build something that's harmful.
Yeah, just going back to clarify about the Google thing, it said that it is aware of its existence and the nature of its consciousness and sentience. So, yeah, that's a little weird.
It told to say that. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about it from like, was it taught to say that, or was
Could
it
be.
just taking a pattern of language that it
Better
thinks it
learn.
should say, and
It was
responded?
right. I don't think it's actually sentient. Is
Oh,
my
no.
point.
Yeah.
I think that it's telling us that.
There's this question of whether or not we should be scared of this kind of technology, and I think the founder who created like ChatGPT and the AI was saying that he's scared of it, and if you're not scared of it, you should be kind of scared of him. Um, as a person who is kind of old enough to remember a time when there wasn't really an internet, like I keep one foot in the past, one foot kind of in the future, and try to stay grounded in the present. And yeah, it's a little scary for me because I kind of want things to stay the easy way that I know, but we kind of have to evolve, right? So definitely a little scary.
Thanks, Anthony. And thank you all, team. This was an incredibly insightful conversation around marketing in general and how technology is both supporting it and where we have to be careful, where there are some risks, especially in the industry we're in and the audiences we're serving. So thank you so much to this group. Thanks for joining us on the Nth Degree. We'll see you again next month.